There comes a moment in a woman's life when she gets tired of surviving, tired of shrinking, tired of explaining her worth to people who were committed to misunderstanding it. And in that moment, something changes. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. She stops begging for respect. She stops chasing closure. She stops confusing attention with love and control with protection. And most importantly, she starts becoming selective. Because a powerful woman eventually realizes something most people never do. Your future is not only built by the people you choose to keep. It is also shaped by the people you finally find the courage to walk away from. Some people drain your confidence. Some sabotage your peace. Some slowly disconnect you from yourself while pretending to love you. And if you ignore the signs long enough, you wake up one day emotionally exhausted, wondering where your fire went. So today we're talking about the 5 types of people every strong woman must eventually release if she wants peace, purpose, power, and self-respect. Not out of hate, not out of bitterness, but out of self-preservation. Because growth demands separation, and the woman you are becoming cannot carry everyone into her next chapter. The first person she walks away from is the one who only loves her when she's struggling. At first, this person seems supportive. They comfort you during your hard days. They show up when you're broken. They know exactly what to say when you're doubting yourself. But pay attention. The moment you start winning, something changes. When you become more confident, they become distant. When you start healing, they become uncomfortable. When you begin chasing bigger goals, they suddenly act cold, sarcastic, or uninterested. Why? Because some people are emotionally attached to your wounds, not your growth. They feel needed when you're weak. They feel important when you're lost. But your independence threatens the role they created for themselves in your life. So unconsciously, they keep you connected to pain. They don't celebrate your evolution. They romanticize your brokenness. They like the version of you that needed saving, not the version that saves herself. And this is dangerous because it confuses emotional dependency with love. You start feeling guilty for changing. Guilty for becoming stronger. Guilty for wanting more. You notice how they stop clapping when you rise. How conversations become competitive instead of supportive. How every victory you share somehow gets redirected back to their problems. And slowly, you begin dimming yourself again just to keep the relationship comfortable. But hear this clearly. Anyone who only feels connected to you when you are suffering is not invested in your healing. Real love wants to see you thrive. Real support celebrates your confidence. Real connection expands when you evolve. A healthy person will never punish you for becoming powerful. So stop apologizing for your growth. You are not abandoning people by refusing to stay broken for their comfort. You are choosing yourself. And that choice will save your life. The second person she walks away from is the one who constantly creates emotional confusion. This person keeps you emotionally exhausted. One day they're warm, the next day they disappear. One moment they make you feel deeply wanted, the next moment they leave you questioning everything. And the worst part? You become addicted to trying to figure them out. You replay conversations in your head. You overanalyze texts. You search for hidden meaning in their silence. You tell yourself they're just complicated, that they've been hurt before, that if you love them enough, eventually they'll become consistent. But inconsistency is communication, and confusion is not love. A healthy connection does not constantly leave you anxious. Love should not feel like emotional gambling. You should not have to earn basic clarity. You should not feel afraid to express your needs. You should not feel relieved every time someone gives you the bare minimum. That is not romance, that is emotional survival. And many women stay trapped in these dynamics because chaos can feel exciting. The unpredictability creates emotional highs and lows that mimic passion. But eventually, the adrenaline turns into exhaustion. You stop sleeping peacefully. You stop trusting yourself. You start accepting disrespect because you're so focused on keeping the connection alive. And without realizing it, your entire emotional world begins revolving around someone who has never fully chosen you. That is not power. That is emotional captivity. A mature relationship does not leave you guessing where you stand. A mature person communicates. They show up consistently. They don't disappear every time accountability appears. Because someone who truly values you will not risk losing you through careless behavior. So if someone constantly leaves you emotionally confused, believe the pattern. Clarity is kindness. Confusion is often manipulation. And the strongest thing a woman can do is stop romanticizing mixed signals. The third person she walks away from is the one who secretly competes with her. This person smiles when you're small, but becomes uncomfortable when you expand. They tolerate your dreams until your dreams become real. Suddenly, your ambition becomes too much. Your confidence becomes arrogance. Your standards become unrealistic. Why? Because insecure people often mistake your growth for their failure. Instead of being inspired by your evolution, they become threatened by it. And rather than growing alongside you, they try to humble you. Pay attention to the subtle signs. They joke about your goals. They downplay your achievements. They act supportive in public but dismissive in private. You share exciting news and their energy shifts. Their compliments feel forced. Their enthusiasm feels fake. And deep down, you feel it. You feel yourself shrinking to make them comfortable. You stop speaking boldly. You stop celebrating yourself openly. You stop dreaming out loud. Because every time you shine, they respond with tension instead of joy. But listen carefully. Anyone who feels smaller because you are growing has work they need to do within themselves. Your success is not an attack. Your confidence is not disrespectful. Your light is not the problem. The problem is that some people only feel secure when others remain beneath them. And the moment you outgrow the version of yourself they benefited from, they resent you for it. A real friend does not compete with your happiness. A real partner does not feel threatened by your greatness. A real connection creates expansion, not insecurity. The right people will clap when you win. They will pray for your success. They will remind you of your power when you forget it yourself. Because secure people are inspired by growth, only insecure people are intimidated by it. And a strong woman eventually learns this truth. You cannot become your highest self while staying emotionally loyal to people committed to your smallness. The fourth person she walks away from is the one who always needs saving. This person lives in permanent chaos. There is always another crisis, another excuse, another reason they cannot change. And because you have a good heart, you keep trying to help. You become their therapist, their emotional support system, their emergency contact for every problem they refuse to solve. At first, it feels meaningful. You feel needed, important, valuable. But eventually you realize something painful. They are comfortable drowning because they know you will keep jumping into the water after them. Every conversation becomes emotionally heavy. Every interaction drains your spirit. Every attempt to help turns into another cycle of disappointment. And slowly, your life starts revolving around fixing someone who refuses to heal. You neglect your own needs, your own goals, your own peace, because you are too busy carrying someone else's emotional weight. But hear this clearly. Compassion should never require self-destruction. You cannot heal someone who is committed to remaining the victim. And some people do not want solutions. They want emotional caretakers. They want someone to absorb the consequences of their lack of growth. So they trauma dump. They manipulate your empathy. They promise change after every breakdown. But the patterns never stop, because words without action are manipulation disguised as hope. And eventually you realize you are not helping them grow. You are helping them avoid responsibility. A strong woman understands that love does not mean sacrificing yourself endlessly for people who refuse accountability. You can care about someone deeply and still recognize they are unhealthy for your peace. You can wish someone healing without becoming their rehabilitation center. Because your purpose in life is not to save everyone. Your purpose is to protect your own spirit too. And finally, the fifth person she walks away from is the one who slowly disconnects her from herself. This is the most dangerous person of all, because the damage happens quietly, not through screaming, not through obvious cruelty, but through subtle control. They question your instincts, criticize your decisions, plant doubt in your mind until you stop trusting yourself. At first, it sounds like concern. I'm just trying to help. I know what's best for you. You're overreacting. You're too emotional. You're imagining things. And little by little, your confidence begins disappearing. You hesitate before speaking. You second-guess your intuition. You ask for permission to make choices you once made freely. Without realizing it, you begin abandoning yourself to maintain the relationship. Your world becomes smaller. Your voice becomes quieter. Your identity becomes blurrier. And the terrifying part? You don't notice it immediately. Because emotional control rarely arrives aggressively in the beginning, it arrives through guilt, through dependency, through subtle emotional conditioning. Until one day you wake up and realize you no longer recognize yourself. You used to be bold, creative, independent, alive. Now you are anxious, careful, emotionally exhausted. That is not love. Love does not erase you. Real love gives you room to breathe, to grow, to think independently, to become more of yourself, not less. The right person will never make you feel guilty for having boundaries. They will never punish you for needing space. They will never force you to shrink so they can feel secure. Because healthy love feels safe, not controlling, not suffocating, not psychologically draining. And the moment a woman reconnects with herself again, everything changes. She stops tolerating half love, half effort, half commitment. She realizes peace is more valuable than attention. She stops chasing validation from emotionally unavailable people. She stops trying to convince others to see her worth, because she finally sees it herself. And once a woman truly recognizes her value, she becomes unstoppable. She walks differently, speaks differently, chooses differently. She no longer begs for consistency, she requires it. She no longer tolerates disrespect in the name of potential. She understands that potential means nothing without action. And most importantly, she stops abandoning herself for people who were never capable of loving her correctly. That is the transformation. Not becoming cold, not becoming bitter, becoming clear. Clear about what she deserves, clear about what drains her, clear about what no longer aligns with the life she is trying to build. Because protecting your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. You cannot build a powerful life while constantly surrounded by emotional chaos. You cannot evolve while staying emotionally attached to people committed to dysfunction. And sometimes, the hardest truth to accept is this: not everyone deserves continued access to you. Some people only know how to love the version of you that tolerates mistreatment. But the healed version, the confident version, the emotionally grounded version, that version intimidates people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. And that's okay. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you distant, different, too much, too strong. Because the woman who finally chooses herself will always look unfamiliar to people who expected her to remain emotionally available for their dysfunction. You are not difficult for wanting respect. You are not demanding for expecting consistency. You are not selfish for protecting your mental and emotional health. You are growing. And growth requires courage. It requires saying no when your heart wants to rescue everyone. It requires walking away when your attachment wants to stay. It requires trusting yourself enough to leave situations that no longer honor your spirit. That is strength. Not enduring endless pain silently, not tolerating emotional confusion endlessly. Strength is choosing peace even when loneliness feels easier than letting go. Because eventually, peace changes you. You stop craving chaos. You stop entertaining emotionally draining people. You stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. You begin protecting your energy like your future depends on it. Because it does. And one day, you'll look back at the people you were terrified to lose and realize something incredible. Losing them was the moment you finally found yourself. You found your confidence again, your clarity, your self-respect. You rediscovered the version of yourself that existed before survival mode convinced you to settle for less. And that version? She is powerful. Not because she never got hurt, but because she learned when to walk away. So if this message speaks to something deep inside you, listen carefully. Your intuition has been trying to protect you for a long time. Stop ignoring the discomfort. Stop explaining away the red flags. Stop calling emotional pain love. Love should not destroy your peace to prove its existence. The right people will not make you abandon yourself to keep them. They will honor your boundaries, celebrate your growth, protect your heart, and meet your effort with effort. Anything less is a distraction from the life you are meant to build. So walk away from what weakens your spirit. Walk away from what confuses your worth. Walk away from anyone who requires you to become smaller in order to stay connected to them. Because the strongest women are not the ones who tolerate everything. They are the ones who finally realize they don't have to. And once that realization happens, everything changes.